and it is due out for the public in a few days' time. Zeina is a Palestinian writer and educator from Rafah, Gaza. And this book is an extraordinarily poignant collection of free verse poetry, exploring themes of diaspora, identity, resistance, and love. Through vivid imagery and raw emotion, you navigate your dual existence as a Palestinian woman from Gaza, living in the diaspora, weaving together personal and collective histories in your verses. And I think it's striking how you honor your heritage, you mourn the ongoing violence of the genocide, and you don't just cling to hope, you shelter hope. And you've dedicated this work to Gaza and Palestinian martyrs. And the remarkable thing is blending English and Arabic in your poetry, and that is shows a deficiency on my part. I wish I could read Arabic, but okay, I do what I can in English, and with the help of others, I get to learn more about the book. So warm welcome, Zeina. Really nice to have you on the show.
It's nice to be here. Thank you so much, Feroz, for that introduction. And don't worry about the Arabic. sometimes it's just the English and the language that I wrote it in will be good for audiences, and for the people that speak English, Arabic, they get a little extra something.
Good. So Zeina, tell me, what brought about this book? Why did you want to publish this work?
Yes, so this work is a labor of love of many years that is really important to me because I started out with my journey as a poet 10 years ago, and I never really thought that the idea for this book would be the way it is, but it's really a transition, a live transition of everything that I've been through in the last 10 years. And it really started out as a just personal collection where I wanted to share very personal stories through poetry, but eventually, as I grew older and discovered my Palestinian identity in the diaspora more and more, it came to be a love letter to myself about where I come from and the experiences that subsequent where I come from, and also a love letter to my people, as you said.
Yeah, and at the book launch last week, what was striking was this large community of Palestinians who all joined you in celebrating this book, and for me, the striking thing was how you made the verse really connect with us. It was there is something about poetry that I think is perhaps I pose as a question: is it more powerful in recitation than in just writing?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So basically, so what I understand is that you're asking about the difference between recitation.
Yeah, I mean, you put across some amazing emotion and feeling in your presentations, and brought the poetry alive, but I don't. It comes across in the book with this striking graphical work that's involved as well. But I think it's very powerful to have you recite that.
Yes. I started out as a performance poet, and I really like to translate that work when I'm on the stage. I believe there's a huge connect between what I wrote on the page and the way I say it, and it completely reinforces everything. And I really have to thank Tariq Al Ubaid, who's waiting for us in the chat right now, who really brought that voice to my book visually, because it's sometimes poetry books don't capture the the tone that a voice can capture, only because it's really subjective to the reader and everything. And basically it's what really brings the passion, I think, is when you have these live events, when you have these readings, people can connect with you in a book. And I'm a big believer in that. And sometimes you don't even need to have a performance, but because it's the way I started out as a performance poet, and really like to continue down that path, where I find people connect the most based on my own experiences. And it's also really important for me as a poet to not just depend on performing, because that's where my skills get strengthened on the written page. And I take inspiration from poets who don't really perform at all, and their skill and their love in the pages to what they're writing is just very evident in the words and the power of the words. And I really wanted the best of both worlds. That's why I wanted captivating pages, but I also wanted to do events that really helped me connect with the people reading those pages.
Right. So help our viewers understand what you have in this book. I mean, it's divided into different sections, so perhaps you can explain what these sections are and why you brought them like that.
Yes, of course. So like it really was facilitated for me. I feel so lucky that the splitting just came very naturally in the way my poetry was written. And because the book is about me, but it's also about being from Palestine. And I wanted to bridge the connection between those two things, but I also wanted to give each element its due, me as a person and Palestine as a cause and as a people. So I think I wanted to bridge the gap through the title first and foremost, but then I also wanted to bridge the gap in the book itself. So the first section starts out with everything Palestine, because I see it as the overarching element and life to my identity. So I start out with that, the rebirth, the birth and exile, the land, the city, right? It gives a good introduction to who I really am. Okay, wait a second. Are you there, Feroz?
I'm there. Just
Oh,
carry on.
sorry.
Yeah.
Your face went through the screen.
Yeah.
And I think Tara is waiting in the chat
Yeah.
too.
No, we'll invite him in
Perfect.
shortly.
So I really wanted to capture the overarching elements that really built me into who I am. And that's why the whole collection is about Palestine. It is the overarching theme, and it is what we really I really wanted to portray how Palestine really just built me into who I am. And just dedicating this work to everyone Palestinian is a collective show of that, of the fact that really Palestine built me into the woman that I am today. And it's very fundamental to my identity. But then the second part also, as an author, you still want to have a unique voice. You still want to show people that, yes, of course, a lot of what I'm going through is defined by my struggle, and I'm honored to carry that, and I'm honored to be Palestinian. But at the same time, I'm just a gal. I'm just a gal from Palestine, and I've been through things. I've been through some things that have nothing to really do with it. Although, of course, everything is interconnected and everything is intersectional. But for example, the heartbreak chapter, very distinct experiences, very just Zeina, love, and hope and rebirth, and all of these things are just very connected to my own soul. So I really wanted to bridge the gap between those two, and I'm happy that people are really finding the connect between the two.
So, I mean, these weren't just written just for the book. I mean, they've emerged over a number of years. Tell me about that process.
Yes, of course. So I remember the exact moment where I thought to myself, like, I want to be a published author. I was sitting in Arabic class in high school, I think in 11th grade or 12th. I'm not really sure. I think 11th because I started performing in 11th grade. Basically, I was like just writing down some like words, some thoughts, like trying to make it into a poem, very short, like a few lines. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna name my book now. Just like a huge manifestation. Like, you know what? I'm gonna name my book. And I was like, I was feeling very like in a transition period. You know, I'm applying to move to Canada. You know, I wanted to visit Palestine, but I couldn't. And especially with, you know, Gaza, it's very up and down. You never know when you want to visit. But then I was still in Kuwait. So I was feeling like I wanted to reach somewhere. I wanted to reach this level of like just bliss and content with where I'm from, no matter how many contradictions are going on, which I realized is a power later on. To be from so many places is not a contradiction. It really builds to your identity. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to call this The Build Up to Bliss. Name changed, whatever. I'm just going to call my book that. I'm going to keep calling it that until it happens. So, of course, the idea developed into Ancestral Daughter later on, but that's the exact moment I knew I wanted to start collecting poems into a collective, into whether a chapbook, a book. I wasn't even sure yet because I was still experimenting with poetry as a form in general. And, you know, I went to an American high school where, you know, poetry that we studied was very conventional, you know, with stanzas and everything. And I really just wanted to explore it on my own because I'm more of a fan of free verse. And even the Arabic poetry that we were studying at school was very conventional. It was very old, like it was literally like 1500 years old, like the poetry that we were studying, that was Arabic. So I moved to Canada. I started gathering all my poems from different experiences: Palestine, love, heartbreak, self-discovery, womanhood. And I kept putting it in one document. I'm like, okay, this is going to be my book. This is going to be my book. Even if there's a lot of different topics, I'm going to put the ones that I love together. And, you know, I would submit to magazines, a poem here, just kind of get a feel of the whole publishing industry. And I got a few poems in a few magazines and started, you know, doing shows here. And I'm like, okay, now I really want to get serious about getting a full published book, like a full collection, not a chapbook, not a poem in a magazine. I want to do a full book. And that's when I reached out to you. That's kind of the process right there.
Right. Okay. So, would you be willing to read out a poem or two for us?
Of course, I would love to do that. So basically, I would like to read out one of the classics, I like to call them, because this is a poem that I published with Unutha magazine, and it's called Malformed Maps, and it's really one of the defining poems about Palestine that I've written that kind of encompasses everything. And for this second one, I'd like to read kind of a longer poem, and I would like to read Crying Rage. I actually never read this out loud before. It's a very sad one, heads up. But I feel like in this time where the Palestinian people are being persecuted for who they are, for fighting for their land, I don't want to shy away from the true devastation of what it feels to be Palestinian. And I feel like Crying Rage really brings that message of this is how we feel. You know, it's we're human beings that are being massacred by the hundreds of thousands, and someone like me is only feeling rage and feeling sadness. So that's what the second poem shows, and also ends with a message of hope, because to be Palestinian is to feel a paradox of emotions until liberation and beyond. So I'll be reading malformed maps, if that's all right for me to start.
Of course, please.
Perfect.
I'll put you on the screen yourself. Okay.
All right, perfect. So this poem was originally published on June 19th, 2020. So I wrote this in COVID in my little apartment in Montreal. And here it goes. It's from the first part of the book, Ancestral. I created a map to make sense of where I should be, of places that could protect me from the worst things that happened in history. I found myself in places where I am not whole. We could not create a map that contained us. We are not cartographers. Lost at sea in a bottle filled with no direction to where we belong, scratched by pens that look like knives with the ink that misdirected us into coming here.
Oof. Wow.
So I think, yes, sorry.
Yeah, go on. Another one for us, please. This is such a treat.
Thank you so much, Feroz. I really just feel like it encompasses this whole displacement, reoccurring experience of displacement that Palestinians feel constantly, whether it be from 1948, whether 67, whether any of the intifadas, and of course all of the wars on Gaza, and of course the genocide, the ongoing genocide. So this is Crying Rage. I wrote this in late 2023. My family was still in Palestine at the time, and it really encompasses the amount of rage, the amount of sadness I was feeling, and I really need to just portray that in a hard-hitting poem. You know what I mean? It's like I was experimenting with just poetry that needs to hit hard to represent the direness of the situation in Gaza. So that's where my mind was going. So this is Crying Rage. Let me just get ready for it. Okay. Every time I close my eyes, I watch Gaza's beach raging with a tsunami of blood. Raging with the blood of brothers murdered, raging with the innocence of our kite-flying kids, raging with the tears of righteousness of Gaza's sons and daughters. Gaza's colors are that of gold and revolutionary red, and I paint my body in its colors until I am taken away too. And I open my eyes to make room for my tears again and again, and I am not done crying my own tsunami. My thoughts land on both a maple and an olive tree, and I am dimensions far from home, and I cry enough to water all the trees. I close my eyes once more, and my siblings cannot afford a change or eyes closed like I do. And I want to remember the good. I cannot survive otherwise. And I relish in the far love of Gaza's glory, this time the most beautiful dream I will ever see. Gaza, you are my forever safe haven, and I wish to die on your souls. But then the nightmares become more shaking than anything, and I cry myself to slumber another countless time, and I question whether lives are cut short or if they were always short, and I cry to Allah, only He knows the answers to my suffering. And I close my eyes again, and Allah knows best. and screams pierce my ears, and I vomit tears, and my family continues to run from terror, to run from pain, and our horror is forever documented, and I am forever scarred. But in the heart of Gaza, every call feels like the last, every message feels like the last, every laugh feels like the last, and each prayer feels like the last, and I ache to survive, and I remind my body nothing will be the last. But the nightmare seemed only for sleepers, but I am a living, a collective torment I cannot leave. And every time I wake up, my body forgets that it has a people, that it still has a family, and I lift my body up in a frenzy, and I frantically think everyone is killed, and I begin my day reminding myself that the occupation has always snaked its way into stealing so much light from me. And I have never felt this much darkness, because of grandfathers staring into their killed daughters' eyes, and on daughters sheltering siblings, on siblings wailing for their mothers, on mothers' hysteria for their murdered sons, on sons' bloodshot eyes sobbing for the loss of their fathers, on fathers burying brothers, on brothers covered in their sisters' spilled blood. And I cry endlessly for us all, and a montage of pain slithers its way into me every time I close my eyes, and my forearms shake, trying to hold the rest of my body upright, and a montage of longing. My family's faces run through my mind, each face in a competition of remembrance. But how can I forget? How can I forget? How can I forget that the whole world is debating my pain when I am the only one feeling it? And if it weren't for faith, I would have drowned in a flood of agony. If it weren't for hope, I would have drowned in a self-made storm. If it weren't for love, I would have drowned in a natural disaster of neglect. And if it wasn't for Gaza gently placing me back on its ancestral shores, time and time and time again, I would have drowned in an abyss of forgottenness. I cry in rage and wait until my body is freed in the wake of liberation, where I am empty of nightmares, where I cry my final tsunami.
Oh, good gracious me. Zainab, that is absolutely extraordinary. Just that one poem makes this book worthwhile. And there's so much more to it as well.
Thank you.
That is really quite phenomenal. And when you first submitted this, this was just on plain paper. There was just words.
Yeah.
And over time that began to evolve as something not merely a textual communication, but a creative communication in terms of the visual presentation. I mean, just to give you, I have the book here. I keep going through this. It's just so beautifully done. For example, pages like this, where we have extraordinary collections of statements.
Yes, it's definitely something that was something important for us to have there with Tariq, the designer. Yeah, definitely.
So let me invite
Yes.
Tariq Olamad to join us.
Of course. The
Welcome
genius behind the designing.
Welcome,
Hello,
welcome.
everybody.
Nice
Good
to meet you.
morning, or evening, wherever you may be. I'm so honored to be part of this.
Well, it's great to have you on board. Tariq Al-Obaid is an art director and visual designer based in between Kuwait and New York. That's stretching yourself very wide. A graduate from Hofstra University with a bachelor's in public relations and from Pratt Institute with a master's of fine arts and design. His eye for storytelling has taken him through an abundance of experience, from entertainment to commercial branding, and now publication design. He's the art director, the visual language of Jhaish's book, breathing life into her poetry, elevating the manifestations of her work. I think it is an extraordinary achievement, Tariq,
Thank you so much.
to be able to design in a way that speaks to and enhances the word, not taking away from it. And I think that is quite an achievement, because art in its own right has its authority, but you have been very kind in working, but clearly worked very closely with Zeina to give expression to her remarkable poetry.
Of course. So me and Zeina, we go way back. We're basically childhood friends. And it wasn't the first time of like that we worked together actually. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago during the pandemic was when I curated a visual poetry project for her website, for a digital experience for her, in which we did a photo shoot on Zoom. Literally, we got on the program and I took a bunch of screenshots and I directed how she was to the clothes that she would wear, how she would pose, and elements to have in the background. And I wanted to make sure that this doesn't just feel like we're just taking a bunch of screenshots on a computer program, but more we're still painting a digital art piece, essentially. So it was a logical next step that like we just stick together in that kind of simpatico vision. And that with her coming out with her debut book, it just made sense for us to go back and revisit and expand upon the dynamic that we already share, both of our art connecting in that way, her poetry and my design coming together. So in addition, since this is also my first ever commercial book, I wanted to give it my all and make sure that this would be something that would be beneficial for everybody involved and elevate poetry, daraja, my art style onto a way that like translates really well to audiences who appreciate poetry, who are enthusiastic about Arab culture and graphic design as well. A lot of my inspiration came from brutalist typography, minimalist visual poetry, such as those by primarily Saint Heron, which is Solange Knowles' creative agency, who have also been very vocally pro-Palestinian as well. I have a bunch of her books and her zines, and they are just really remarkable expressions of typography and poetry. And I wanted to seek to emulate that level of dedication to art.
I mean, I think that it comes across. I mean, it's so difficult to choose pieces to show. I mean, just these regular designs here. What inspired this?
So this was also a means to elevate Palestinian visual culture and design through tatriz, as well as be dividers for each little sub-chapter, because the book is divided into 2 parts. So we wanted to make sure that audiences, don't get lost, but also discover something new with Palestinian tatriz and how each one kind of represents the ecosystem in which each poem lives in each chapter, basically.
Yeah, we really wanted to emphasize the Ghaz cedar tree or cypress tree, which is on the cover of the book. And Tariq, if you wanna tell them about like the story of that with the tatriz from the Palestinian woman in Cairo and you digitizing them.
Yes, so we were figuring out certain elements to include with the visual language of the book, and you can see the cover is made up of all different types of tatriz motifs, and as well as eyes and crescents and keys, and specifically the cypress tree. It came from a design that Zeina had seen in a piece of fabric from a woman in Cairo, and she thought it would be an amazing element to add to the book. So she had sent me a photo, and I went through it into Illustrator, and digitized it, made it look, that would match the visual aesthetic of the book, and it just worked out perfectly. It serves as a great centerpiece and also symbolic of Zeina's own roots, taking plant and growing.
Yeah, the whole building blocks is like just the building blocks to Palestinian identity, to the Palestinian cause. All these symbols that came from massive events in the Palestinian history timeline over the years, whether it's the key to return, whether it's the longing for home symbolized by the crescent moon, whether it's the cedar tree or different tatriz motifs where Palestinian women would literally illustrate the map to home on their clothes using tatriz as they were escaping from Zionist militias. So these are all things that are key to Palestinian history, and the building blocks was Tariq's idea, and the whole wraparound for the design of the cover was by our cover designer and illustrator Sanad Hamdouna, who couldn't be with us today, but basically him and Tariq worked very closely on the cover. So it's really a labor of love of Tariq's expertise, Sanad's connection to these symbols as a Palestinian as well, and also the idea of what I wanted to represent as a Palestinian woman through tatriz, through these also very feminine symbols like the moon and the eye as well, like showing just that representative history.
Right.
Yep, that's correct. We actually went through 6 different renditions of the cover before we settled on the last one. The first one was very, very different. It actually was supposed to include 2 hands holding an envelope and a childhood photo of Zeina, but it still had the cypress tree tatriz all over the background. But as the book came together and we built the foundation of the book, we felt that the cover wasn't really truly representative of what the book was really like. So we had to go back and revisit it and look at it and make sure it felt balanced in accordance to not just the cover, but also the back and the interior, because a lot of it was made up of how it's inspired by Swiss grid systems as well. And the great thing about it is that it also represents the dissection and reformation of the Palestinian identity, breaking apart and coming together at many different times throughout history and throughout many different Palestinians' personal journeys across the diaspora. So including also the colors, maintaining the olive green, the deep red, and the beige.
Yeah. I mean, and so you take a page like this. I mean, how much was that your ideas, Zeina, and how much was this something that Tariq, you said this is how it should be done?
It was all Tariq, 100% of the credit design. I'm the writer, and I was like, listen, Tariq, like, you know me very well. You know my voice. We used to be in workshops of writing and reading together back in Kuwait. You know my beginnings, you know my style, and I trust your style 100%. And I really wanted that modern look, and Tariq was able to have that experience in his work in New York, and I've been following his work the whole time in New York and in Kuwait as well. So I fully trusted him with that vision, and I told him, be as creative as you want to be, read the words, feel the words, and just go ahead and do that.
For sure. The main driver also was that there's a problem with diaspora poetry in which it's become far too minimalist and Instagrammable in a way that a lot of diaspora poetry that's published loses its sense of identity. And so we wanted to come together and create a visual poetic identity that was unique to Zeina, but also still reflected the times in a way that's doesn't feel outdated or boring, just like pure paragraphs on pages, but also in a way that's like, that really speaks to the poetry, especially with solar system. I wanted to represent a solar system. And in addition, there's the second page where it says swirl. There's a tiny block, a paragraph that reflects the line that's about bringing it down to earth. you know, your head's up in the clouds and all the lines are spinning as if, you know, it's the actual solar system rotating, and then it brings you right back down to Earth and everything's all normal again. So we were trying to embody not just, we also didn't want to be too literal with the design, but just kind of breathe a new sense of perspective into it.
Yeah, like literal.
And Zeina's lovely handwriting.
Yes,
yeah, that was also...
I was 10 years old when I wrote that. I really wanted to show the beginning. I really wanted for people to delve into my identity. That's why we have the whole prologue that was designed with Tariq, that I have a little essay that you know, explains my humble beginnings, and basically just showing the first poem about Palestine that I've written, and taking that from my journal that I still have today. And it really, if you read the words in that poem, it's just, you know, the basics. It's the basics of being Palestinian. Like, you know, we are fighting for Al-Aqsa, we're fighting for Jerusalem, we have our land is stolen, I love Palestine. It's such a, you know, it's a child. I was a child writing that, but the same sentiment is there throughout the book, you know, and shows the consistency of diasporic poetry no matter where you go. And I dedicate this to Palestinian women, Palestinian people, the Palestinian martyrs, especially Palestinian poets who were killed by Israel in the last 100 years. And basically, we've written about the same things in many different forms, in many different capacities, with different very, very, very precious experiences. But at the end of the day, I wanted to put that poem in the beginning, because that's what it is to be Palestine, to fight for the sovereignty of our land, to write about it, to understand our history, and to teach our children not to forget. And that's why when Tariq designed the book, I really feel it's universal. You know, it applies for people that are visual readers, but it also applies to people that are art lovers, and it also applies to poets, and it also works for regular readers who just want to engage in a book about Palestine, you know, and also for people in my community who know me. At the end of the day, this is a book that is distinct to my own experiences. So I think it covers the multifacetedness of all of these different demographic of readers.
Well, I have a comment here from John Peter Portelli, who was the editor, the compiler of the book that we published, Unsilenced.
Oh, thank you so much, John Peter.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No, it's wonderful. But I think, Tariq, I think it is a remarkable thing to have done, to have enhanced the poetry without overwhelming it. And this partnership between the two of you is, I mean, it's an extraordinary demonstration of art, but also, you know, just picking up on your last comment, Zeina, and I think what comes across to me, and it's related to the Palestinian struggles, and that it is no longer a Palestinian struggle. It is one of humanity, and you know, we've seen people flying the flag saying, "This is a flag of humanity." Yes, and I think I think your poetry strongly reflects that, and it is showing that humanity exists in the particular. It doesn't separate from the particular, but opens up possibilities of discovering, in a sense, our own loss of humanity, and finding a pathway to rediscovering, reinventing what it means to be human.
Yes, for sure. I feel like, the job of the artist is to do exactly that. And I think that poetry itself is a very universal language. It touches right on the dot. It touches the feelings of a human, right? It's in the sense where it's different than read a novel can touch on the emotions of a human, and so can an essay, so can a short story. But poetry itself, is very emotional. It's an emotional art form, and I really wanted to dig deep into that. I want people to put themselves in in the shoes of a Palestinian. Not just me. I'm very privileged. Like I'm here. I'm in Canada. I'm born here. I don't speak for the people that have been through all of what has happened in Palestine, but I'm definitely an extension of that. I still have a lot of defining experiences that show that struggle as a Palestinian. So I really wanted the humanity to seep through, not proving my own humanity or anything like that, but and I reference Muhammad al-Kurd's book, Perfect Victims, in this book as well, where he's like, we don't need to prove ourselves to anybody that we're human, but we will use art to unapologetically tell people the atrocities that have happened to us without apologizing for it, without having to explain our own anger, just show the anger. And that's what I've done in this book. I showed the sadness, I showed the anger, I showed the hope, I showed the sentiment of being Palestinian unapologetically, because I was running away from it for a very long time as someone in the diaspora who was afraid of silencing, who was afraid of doxing. And part of that struggle was me trying to get published for a very long time, because I wouldn't back down from the themes that I wanted to say about Israel. You know what I mean? Like it's a universal fact that they have occupied us, and that they have done all of the crimes of humanity to us. So I think that I wanted to show that in those pages, but also through the daughter section, I appeal through a different type of humanity to women in general. Like, oh, we're yes, we can be fighting, we can be in solidarity with each other, but we're also women, we're also girls, we have our femininity. And I find that a lot of Palestinian women struggle to not find that femininity, but to exude that femininity, because we're always fighting, we're always in the masculine, as they say, we're always fighting, we're always strong, we're always this. Not that these are not feminist and women feelings and sentiments, but at the same time, it's nice to acknowledge the rosiness of being a woman. It's nice to acknowledge the love and heartbreaks that are delicate that women also have. So in the light of being so tough and so strong all the time because of the harsh conditions that have been, that we've been subjected to. So I really wanted to show those sides of humanity, like the struggle of justice, but I also wanted to show the poetic side of just being human and feeling human. So that's why I really care about those two parts side by side.
And just to say my last piece here, at the end of the day, art at its very core is meant to evoke so many different emotions, and as well, it's also subjective as well. So many people can feel many things or feel nothing when it comes to art, whether it's visual art or poetry. So all I hope is that this book, with its combination of forces between graphic design, visual design, and poetry, can really speak to the audience. I hope the audience gets to feel, and when it sees all the words, especially the ones that repeat between each chapter, it really runs home how strong of a foundation it is to be Palestinian, to be reminded every day of what's happening among your diaspora, what's happening in the motherland, and just running home what people feel every day, every waking moment, as reminders, as awakenings and just the eternal struggle of being Palestinian and being part of a diaspora. And I just can't thank you guys enough for having me be part of this and helping spread that message.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, it's wonderful. I mean, the only image that comes to mind is as two artists, it's like players in an orchestra. That they're not competing. They are enhancing each other's passions and emotions. And I think that's been done remarkably well. I don't think there are many other examples I know of immediately, and I think it's a wonderful achievement. Tariq, would you like to choose a poem that you particularly like that Zeina could read to us?
Unfortunately, I do have to get going, but
Okay.
I'll read it after he goes. Do you
closing,
have anything in mind, Tariq?
Definitely Green-Eyed Brothers. I think that's one of my favorite designs.
I'll read it.
Okay. Well,
Of course.
Tariq,
Thank
thanks
you
so
so
much for joining us, and I hope we will have other opportunities to get together.
Inshallah. Thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you guys soon. And thank you again,
Okay.
Zeina, for having me part of this. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Green-Eyed Brothers, I think, is Tariq's favorite because he definitely that poem had one of the defining symbols of the book, which is the eye, the green eye, that shows in the design of the book. And it's representative of like a few people in my life that have green eyes. It's quite literal, and they're my brothers. Like one of them is my actual brother, and the other one is another brother of mine who's like.
My mother had green eyes too.
There you go, important representation of green-eyed family. But no, it's basically I wanted to connect like the earth in their eyes to the earth of Palestine, and how basically that poem, as a woman, I wanted to have a delve into my own interpretation of the perspective of the Palestinian man, because the Palestinian man is often, misrepresented in the media, often ostracized from the narrative of Palestinian, ethics and values. Whenever people are killed by Israel, like, oh, Palestinian women and kids, and I'm just like, what about the men? What about the men that have fought for us, have been freedom fighters for the past 100 years, the protectors, the grandfathers, the men, the fathers, the brothers, the uncles, the lovers, the protectors of Palestine, and I just really wanted to just have my own, perspective on what I have seen them go through, because it's often misrepresented in the media, and it's often unclosed. Palestinian men have been one of the backbones of Palestinian society, and what, especially that this book is published here in North America, I really wanted people to see that, again, not appeal to their humanity, because I really don't like doing that, because Palestinian men are human whether anyone likes it or not, but it's the fact that I wanted to show the emotions that I've seen from them in this poem. So I'll go ahead and read it. It's a short one. Basically, I wrote this in high school. Actually, I wrote this in high school, and I was still discovering, just everything that is tied to being a Palestinian in general. So not only was I experimenting with my own poetry as a woman, I also wanted to really, really understand everybody's perspective as a writer. And it's very important for me to be knowledgeable about people's experiences. So here it goes. This is Green-Eyed Brothers. My brothers long to smell the aroma of grape leaves floating in our air, to listen to our waves when they grace our settlement of a shore. They only hear The sounds of their delicate hearts inside of them break, as if heartbreak is their only destiny. And their eyes are emerald grass, growing and grounded underneath the oppression wall. I see home as the only end, and my brothers are forced to be men, picking flowers from the very soil that is malnourishing them, and each smile wider than the other. And I ask, how? These are the green-eyed brothers I know. Here's to the green-eyed brothers I love.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
I reference the concept of, in the footnotes, I reference the concept of unchilding, you know, when Palestinian boys are really forced to be men, when, you know, they have to take care of their families because of, you know, like the martyrs in their family, the injuries. Especially in the last 2 years, there are thousands and thousands of Palestinian orphans, and they're forced to take care of their siblings, take care of their family. So it's unchilding what Israel is doing, and they basically are robbing Palestinian boys of their childhood, and it affects them into when they are men. And same goes for Palestinian girls too.
Yeah. Well, this has been a remarkable. I could spend all day listening to you recite your poems.
Thank you, Feroz. Thank you. I wish I
could. Yeah, no, I think it's been really great. I think we should just let people know that you can find out more about Ancestral Daughter's book on Instagram and Facebook. And also you should look at the remarkable website, ZeinaJhaish.com.
Yeah.
You can get a copy of this outstanding book from darajapress.com. And we hope that, Zeina, this is just the first of many productions that you will be involved in, and I hope we can support you in that journey.
Thank you so much, Feroz, for having me, and thank you, Daraja, for believing in me as a first-time publisher. And I really wanted to. I want to thank everybody who made it to the end of this video. I'm very appreciative that you're here to support. Follow Ancestral Daughter for, you know, giveaway updates, events in Canada, maybe internationally, who knows? And also to keep up to date anything that's connected to the book. And there's also digital formats for those who like to read on EPUBs and PDFs. We have them, and 20% of all proceeds of the digital copies go to the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sparing time to be with us, Zeina. And we will be in touch again soon. We have a number of events coming up, so I'm sure we will be meeting up again.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Go well.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.